Hey, shalom everyone. This is Chris Shoemaker, also known as Yehuda ben Shomer, and welcome to the Daily Drosh. Today's Daily Drosh is taken from Deuteronomy chapter 18, verses 20, and the last half of verse 22. And it reads, "But if I haven't spoken, and a prophet claims to have a message from me, you must kill that prophet, and you must also kill any prophet who claims to have a message from another God. Don't be afraid of any prophet whose message doesn't come from the Lord." So this, in the context of when this verse was given, it was given when during the time of Moses, and this was adhered to and kept all the way through the kings of Israel and Judah, up until the time they were taken into captivity, or up until the time that some other country ruled over them, and they were no longer able to rule themselves or govern themselves. And so, in the context of this verse is under a theocratic rule of God through a king who He has chosen through the Torah. So in other words, the law of God, the Torah of God, was the rule of the king, and that's how the king ruled the land. And he got messages from the Lord through the word or through the prophets. So this was a capital crime. This was a capital punishment if there was somebody who claimed to be a prophet of the God of Israel and they made a false prophecy, they were to be put to death. So, just saying, if you find a false prophet today, I'm not saying going out and kill the guy, because that's not what we're supposed to do. We live in exile. We live under foreign rule and foreign governments, and that's just not the thing to do today. We can't do that because we no longer live in the land of Israel under a theocratic rule of a king chosen by God, and we no longer live under a governmental rule of Torah. So, how do we apply this verse? How is this verse applicable? How can we keep this verse in the modern day, in the context, in the way that we live today? So, if you're watching TV, or if you go to a church, or if you go to some Christian event or meeting, and there's a prophet that stands up and says, "Thus saith the Lord shall returneth in 2020, February 17th. And let's say that time comes and goes and the Lord hasn't returned. What are we to do with that prophet? Well, we're to implement the old schoolyard game of pretending somebody is dead, basically shunning them and acting as if they are dead. Now, in Judaism, when somebody rejects the Jewish faith and converts to another religion, their family actually holds a funeral for them, and for all intents and purposes, that person is dead to them. So we are to treat these prophets who give a false prophecy in the name of the God of Israel, we are to treat them as if they were dead. In other words, don't pay attention to them, don't listen to them, don't give to their ministry, don't read their books, don't watch their videos. Don't support them in any way, shape, or form. Just pretend that they were dead. And if every believer did that to a false prophet who prophesies falsely in the name of the God of Israel, then that person's ministry would basically be no more, because for all intents and purposes, he would be shunned to such a point that he's dead. So let me just reiterate again. But if I haven't spoken, and a prophet claims to have a message from me, you must kill that prophet. Or in other words, today, the way it would be applied today is we just gotta act like this prophet doesn't exist, like he's dead. Treat him as if he's dead. And you must also kill any prophet who claims to have a message from another God. Don't be afraid of any prophet whose message doesn't come from the Lord. Oh no, the Lord's coming back in 2020, February 17th. What are we going to do? The world's going to end. No, it says don't be afraid of him. Don't be afraid if his words doesn't come to pass. So there's a lot of preachers and TV evangelists and ministers in the Christian and Messianic and Nazarene movement who claim to be a prophet of the Lord, who has given prophecies in the name of the Lord, and they end up being false prophets, and yet people still defend them, and yet people still support them, yet people still buy their books and their videos and go to their website and study from them, even though they've proven to be a false prophet. Once somebody has prophesied and made a proclamation in the name of the God of Israel, and that prophecy turns out to be wrong, we just ignore them. We just let it go, and they no longer exist to us. And that is a healthy way to stay true to God and to stay true to His Word. It's like the Apostle Paul said about the Bereans. He told the Bereans, he said, you know what? Just don't take my word for it. Look in the Word of God and see if what I say is true. Same with a false prophet. We need to go back to the Word of God and test His words through the Word of God. And if it stands true and if it comes to pass, then fine. If not, Just leave the guy alone. Anyway, that's the Daily Drosh for today. Thanks for watching. Shalom and Shavua Tov.